Good morning, and welcome to online worship with Horizon Unitarian Universalist Church. I am the Reverend Laura Brandis, minister of this congregation, and I welcome you this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whenever it is you choose to experience our online worship. We know that you have lots of choices these days for online worship, and so we are honored that you have chosen to worship with us. Today, we are focusing on collective liberation with worship led by our ministerial intern, the Reverend Dr. Aya Dulm. Aya is joined by members of our social justice team. They have contributed to this reflection on collective liberation. Our social justice team partners in a covenantal relationship with Faith in Texas. And Faith in Texas is a multi-faith, multi-racial grassroots movement that works together for economic, racial, and social justice for all people. We are proud to work with them on social justice issues, particularly now during this time of pandemic. So breathe with me. Find a place in your physical environment from wherever you are watching this worship service to center, to breathe into your heart, to be present, to enter into sacred time.
Good morning. We enter our sacred time together with these words by Rod Richards, titled, "Stay Together and Stick Together." We who gather here in this tender and anxious and confusing time, we have been awash in a sea of information and misinformation and disinformation. And this information that we seek is simply so that we may make wise decisions about how we respond and learn how we hold one another when we can't hold one another, and decide how we can be when we can't be together. What is this we face? How best do we respond? And why is this happening? The why, the why, the why. And why do those who suffer most, always suffer most from what we now face? Why? And what can we do for those who are most at risk, most vulnerable all the time and now again? And how do we respond? And how do we hold one another when we can't hold one another? And how do we stay together and stick together and worship together when we can't be together? Yet we are. Here we are. We are here together in worship. And we light our chalice with using words of Diana Vandiver. We light this chalice, a symbol of our faith alive in the world, naming our vision of collective liberation and daring to remember each other into beloved community. Please join me in the affirmation of our church. Love is the doctrine of our church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve humanity in harmony with the earth. Thus do we covenant together.
Our world is one world, but touch is manifest. with love or hate we make a bridge or wall. Our world is one world, its ways of wealth affect us all. The way we spend, the way we share, who are the rich or poor, who stand or fall. Our world is one world, just like a ship that bears us all, where fear and greed make many holes, but where our hearts can hear a different call.
Here at Horizon, we continue to partner with Metro Crest Fellowship to help provide to those who are most in need at this difficult time. The number of people who need their help and assistance is increasing daily. Please continue to support this organization via online monetary donations. And now, I invite you to join me for a story for all ages. The Journey of the Birds, inspired by the ancient epic poem The Conference of the Birds by Persian Sufi Muslim writer Fariduddin Attar. Once upon a time, all the birds in the land decided they needed a leader for their community. A leader, they thought, would make their community stronger. Representatives of all the bird species gathered to discuss finding a leader. A leader will tell us the right things to do, said the robin. Our leader must be wise, said the owl. A leader must believe we are each important, big and small, said the sparrow. I want the leader to be caring like a friend, said the dove. Yes, the leader must help us share and get along better, said the jay. The leader must make us feel safe, said the hawk. I know where you can find such a leader, said the hoopoe bird. It is the simorgh, and it lives far from here. The birds were very excited. They said they were willing to go anywhere to find such a leader. It might be dangerous, said the hoopoe. A few birds looked troubled, but all the birds voted to go find the simorgh. The hoopoe took off, and all the birds followed. They flew at night. They flew in sunshine. Days and days passed. Some birds got tired and left the group. Other birds were filled with doubt. How did they know the simorgh really existed? Only the hoopoe had ever heard of this bird. Some of the doubters dropped out, but others kept flying. One valley was filled with fiery mountains. All the birds were afraid. I'm too small to make it over that mountain, lamented the sparrow. No, keep flying. We can make it together. We will help you, said the birds, and they did. The strong flyers helped the weaker flyers. The birds with good vision helped find food for the group. Along the journey, the birds learned how to better respect, share, and care for each other. It seemed that every bird had something special and unique to offer that made the journey easier. Finally, the hoopoe announced, "We're here!" The other birds looked around in anticipation. "Where is the simorgh? We don't see it," they cried. "Come, it's over here," said the hoopoe. The birds stood beside the hoopoe and realized they were on the edge of a lake. They looked in and saw their own reflections. Then they understood. The simorgh was not another bird. The simorgh was all of them, and all of them were the simorgh. They remembered that each of them had something good and strong and special inside of them, and that each bird had gifts to bring to the community. They were all that was needed to keep the community strong, and they knew now that together they could do anything.
We are deeply grateful for your continued financial contributions to our church, as well as for contributions to the minister's discretionary fund that allows our minister, Reverend Laura Brandes, to help those who are most in need in our community. We ask that you give as you are able. You can make online donations on our website, horizonuu.org, as well as mail a check. As an offertory, Carmen will play Songs Without Words, Opus 30, number 6, by Felix Mendelssohn. invite you to join me in offering witness and support for one another. With love in our minds and hearts, we journey with one another through joys and sorrows that life brings. This morning, we hold in our hearts people in Canada after last weekend's shooting, and we send our compassion and love to all who are affected. We also remember communities in the South who were affected by tornadoes this week, and we send our love and care to them. We also hold in our hearts LGBTQ communities as we mark the Day of Silence on April 24th. This is an observance day that is used to spread awareness about bullying and its effect on lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender students. It began a student-led national protest where students took a vow of silence to highlight the silencing and erasure of LGBTQ students at school. We hold in our hearts all who are silenced. As we hold these concerns in the sacred space of our community, let us honor those joys and sorrows that remain unspoken yet live in the silence of our hearts. May our love go out to those in our greater community and world who suffer in mind, body, or spirit. And for the many blessings, may our lives be overcome with gratitude. As I light this candle, let us feel all the ways we are all connected to each other and to all beings, knowing that what affects one affects us all. At this time, I invite you to join me for a time of meditation and prayer, to still our minds and open our hearts. If you feel comfortable, you may close your eyes or just let them rest. Breathe with me. I pray using the words of Erica Hewitt. Spirit of love and guidance, in these quiet moments, let us remember our power and our agency. It is tempting at times to use our power to protect our own interests, to wall off our hearts, to lift ourselves above others, and each of us has done so with or without awareness. May we remember that we are called to use our power in a different way, to be agents of healing in a hurting world, to bring about justice, and to give voice to hope, to summon forth compassion. As we breathe now together, let us take a few moments of silence to get in touch with our inner power and agency. May we be inspired to do all these things, to heal, to help, to bless, and to do so with love.
Hello, my name is Menica, and I'm a member of the Horizon Justice Team and a co-leader of the immigration arm of Faith in Texas at Horizon. Our social justice work is continuing even in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, since people continue to be affected by governmental policies at all levels. Partnering with Faith in Texas for more than 2 years has enabled Horizon to expand its social justice outreach. Now this outreach is more important than ever with the necessary physical distancing that may last for a while. So the Horizon Justice Team needs your help. You can help from the safety of your own home, and you don't have to be a Justice Team member to help. We are once again joining the Faith in Texas Rapid Action Network, called RAN, so we can help to have an impact on local, state, and national legislative bodies. RAN is a system that allows us to act strategically from our homes in concert with other local, state, and national RAN teams during critical developments when our moral agenda is under attack. RAN teams are comprised of up to 10 people who respond within 24 hours to text alerts, which are sent through Faith in Texas to a RAN team leader, who then sends them to team members. The alert includes a request to call, email, or sign and share information related to a particular issue. The text alert also provides a link to a RAN information page, which gives more detail about the issue in question, such as context, the script, and legislators' contact information. Like Faith in Texas, one of Horizon's core beliefs is that all humans have inherent worth and deserve to be treated with dignity, care, and respect. Some of the issues the Rapid Action Network will be focusing on are the moral and public health imperatives that people's homes should be secure, protecting people who are incarcerated and held in immigration detention facilities and their families, as well as to protect our own communities. Another RAN issue is making sure that all voters have the information they need to exercise their critical right to vote and to be counted. To find out more or to become a part of the RAN network, please email fit@horizonuu.org. You can also read the Faith in Texas COVID-19 Response and Recovery Platform. This information is available online at horizonuu.org and in the Horizon newsletter. This is the time to join together and act to help others from our homes so we can feel like we are doing something to make a difference at this difficult time.
Karen Johnston writes, "Do not be alone right now. Gather together. Gathering together grows courage in ourselves and in others who see the numbers swelling. It is a small thing, but right now it is an important thing. Great sources of wisdom remind us, just because you cannot stem the tide of all hate, it is still right to do the thing you can do. These things add up. Your one thing and my one thing, his one thing and their one thing and her one thing. Together it becomes a big thing. Do not be alone right now. Any liberation, all liberation is collective liberation. My freedom is bound with yours and yours with mine inextricably. Let us together cast our lots during this big thing, bending the moral arc of the universe towards justice." This week began with several protests calling out to reopen and end the lockdown. People gathered with signs, some carried their weapons with them, and they called out, "Liberate our state." We can understand the frustration of being stuck, not being able to go out and do the things we were used to do. We can understand the anxiety and worry about our economic downfall unfolding right in front of us. And yet, there is something very unsettling about these protests, making many of us question their true motives and the meaning they claim behind the word liberation. I believe in liberation. Liberation from oppression, from powers that limit and hinder people and nations to live and thrive in this world. I believe that liberation is possible and attainable when people come together to work for it. And here's why. I was a teenager when Latvians began to fight for freedom from the Soviet occupation. Liberation efforts had saturated cultural life. Songs, plays, political movements, religious groups all joined together, sending petitions to God and drawing on a national hero for inspiration. Together with 2 million people, I stood in the human chain, a line we formed across Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia to symbolize the unity of the 3 Baltic states in this fight. Half a year later, tanks rolled in the capital cities. They were part of OMON, a specialized riot unit of the USSR, and they violently seized government buildings and threatened Latvia with war if we continued to demand independence. Latvians gathered with rakes and hay forks and formed the barricades. I still remember fear I felt during this time. People were killed. These collective efforts of people resulted in Latvia becoming a free country again. So I believe in liberation because I experienced it. I lived through the struggles, the fight for freedom, and the eventually liberation. Our UU faith teaches us to work for liberation, to remedy the social injustices and the oppression, and side with those who are most vulnerable in this world. We have many examples in our faith history of people with courage to fight for liberation of others. During the long depression that began in 1873, caused economic crash internationally, and lasted for years, there were many who believed in and argued for social Darwinism, which holds that those who struggle should die. The strongest, and may I add, the rich, will survive, so we do not need any political reforms to aid those who need help. It was this context that gave rise to the social gospel movement, a religious social justice movement informed by faith and pioneered by mainline Protestant churches. Among UUs, there were 2 renowned social justice advocates, the Universalist Clarence Skinner and a Unitarian John Haynes Holmes, who both joined their forces in furthering social justice reforms. Holmes argued that our salvation, our concern, is with the world, not individual, and he devoted his life focusing on social and political issues in New York. The most formative event in our UU history, when social justice became part of our UU identity, was Selma during the Civil Rights Movement. Mark Morrison Reed writes, Unitarian Universalists did not know that Selma would become a pivotal moment in their history. In the past, our religious forebears had stood on the brink of making a difference in racial justice and had wavered. but not this time. Called, sent, drawn, and compelled, hundreds responded. When they left, there were 2 UU martyrs in their hearts, and there was a conviction in their stride. They had been changed in ways their lives would reveal, but which words could never quite capture. We still carry this conviction in our hearts as part of our UU faith. The conviction that we are called to work for social justice, that in Karen Johnston's words, even if we cannot stop all hate, it is the right thing to do. So how do we respond to coronavirus pandemic and this week's protests? Is it really about having to choose between economy and health? Maybe it is not one or the other. In considering the reopening decisions, our UU faith calls us to consider who is the most vulnerable in all this. We may have heard that the virus does not discriminate, but in the US, it does. The coronavirus is affecting some people more than others, and the data only highlights our ongoing systemic socioeconomic inequalities. We know that race and economic status makes a difference. People with smaller incomes cannot afford to stay home. They may not have paid sick leave and are forced to go to work even if sick. They cannot afford to stock up on groceries and have to risk exposure to virus by making several trips to the grocery store. They may not have access to a car and need to use public transportation. Our economic and healthcare system has contributed to the fact that many of the minority groups have health conditions that limit their ability to recover from COVID-19. Many do not have health insurance, and Texas is the state with the highest number of uninsured residents. Across the nation, the Black Americans are dying up to 3 times more than any other group. And pastoral theologians are already exploring what the ministry looks like for COVID-19 trauma and post-COVID-19 trauma in the Black communities. All of this tells us that opening up prematurely will only continue to further affect those of us who already are suffering the most. So when we hear calls for liberation, Johnston reminds us that any liberation is collective liberation. My liberation is bound with yours, and yours with mine inextricably. So how do we hold one another when we can't hold one another during this time? Earlier, you heard from the social justice team about ways to do the work from our homes while we observe the shelter-in-place order. This past week, Dallas County considered an ordinance that would give tenants some grace period when they faced eviction. As part of RAND network, many emails were sent, 342 to be exact, and the ordinance passed. Sending an email is a small act, but one that makes a lot of difference in the lives of people. You can read in our newsletter about some other ways to engage in works of compassion and care. Our gifts and skills that we bring to this journey helps us hold one another. And as Johnston said, these things add up. Your one thing and my one thing, his one thing and their one thing and her one thing. Together, it becomes a big thing. Our participation, our care, and compassion matters. An African proverb says, if you think you are too small to make a difference, you have not spent a night with a mosquito. So let us together cast our lots, doing this big thing, bending the moral arc of the universe towards justice. May it be so. As we extinguish our chalice, I invite you to join me in saying our mission words that you may have already memorized by now. We extinguish this flame, but not our commitment to welcome radically, love boldly, grow spiritually, and serve courageously. This commitment we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
As we go forth, may we carry in our hearts words by Erica Hewitt. As we re-enter this world that we call home, may our eyes be open to the beauty around us and the beauty inside each person. May we remember the gift of freedom in all of its frightening, juicy privilege, and may we use our freedom to make bold, confident choices to deepen love and justice in the world. May we go in peace, be safe, and be well. Amen. Blessed be.